Hey guys, so this is my attempt at recreating this build in The Sims. I hope you enjoy. I did place it on the gallery as well if you wanted to download it. I know terrain tools can be a little bit off-putting sometimes, but just with a little finesse and patience, it's perfectly fine. You'll get there. In the photo, I noticed that the tree where the house is, it's on a little bit of a bump out, but with a couple of attempts, I really tried to get it on that bump out and it wasn't working out for me. So I decided that I still wanted to keep it on a smaller property, but I wanted to still have the bump out there without having to spend too much time on it. So this was my attempt at practicing the type of design that I wanted to build on that final floor. And this is what I decided that I was going to work with on a larger scale. The windows in the photo look like they're placed inside the wall, so I wanted to have that cut out in the wall. For reference, in the photo there are 6 windows, so I wanted to have 6 spaces there. So I eventually clipped it a little bit and just adjusted as I went along. You'll see me making quite a few adjustments here because I wanted to make it exactly as I saw it in the picture. So in this clip, you won't see where I added certain things, but I definitely added them, and I did add it on the gallery. So if you wanted to download it, I'll leave my EA ID in the description box below, and you could go on the gallery and check it out as well. So this is where I made a couple adjustments, trying to figure out exactly how I'm gonna place the windows eventually on the build. In the picture, there are 6 windows for the front of the build, and at the side there are 4 windows. But on my build, at the end result, you'll see that there are only 3 windows. The reason being for that is because I decided to place a door where the balcony area was. Based on how the layout eventually looked on the build, I feel like it was necessary to have a door going from inside the house to, like, for example, that area could be a dining area, or maybe an area for a creative space for a sim, or whatever it might be. But I decided to put a door in that space, and I also didn't want to change the shape of it, where I made the cube or the square bigger and it eventually turned into a rectangle, because on the photo it's definitely a cube, definitely a square build. So this tree took me for a ride, but it was the perfect tree for this build. It had those naked branches that I was looking for, or bare branches, and with the pepper lights on them, or the little tiny lights, it just gave a nice little effect at night. Eventually I shrunk down a couple of them and I placed them in random areas across the lot where I knew I would put bigger trees, so it definitely gave this firefly type of vibe at night. For me, I didn't like the placement of the tree under the houses that I had right now, so I eventually deleted those and I kept 1. I built 4 floors in the basement, so 4 floors going down. And on the lowest floor, I took the tree, I made it bigger, and I raised it up. If you need any help with that, I do have a couple videos on my channel showing you how to raise and lower objects, how to make objects smaller, and how to make them bigger. So you could check those out as well if you needed any help with it. But I took the tree in the basement, raised it up, and eventually the end result of the build that I placed on the gallery were branches that came up from the ground. 2 things that I like to do in my build: I prefer to have a build that doesn't clip, and I definitely want a build that's functional. So My build, in the end, it was definitely functional. I took a sim and they went on the balcony, they climbed the ladder perfectly fine, they climbed the stairs perfectly fine, they went around in the house perfectly fine. It worked. That's all I needed to know. So on the gallery, you can find it under Shell Challenge 2024. That's what I called it. But I'll leave my EA ID in the description box so you guys could check under my EA ID so you know exactly what build it was. But eventually, I think the Snowy Escape tree was the best tree to use all over the lot, but it only comes in two colors. It came in green and red, and I didn't want to spoil the whole yellow scene that was going on in the photo, so I decided to keep the green one. Now, if you're a new builder like me, don't stress yourself. Do not worry about having things exactly as they are. You can try as best as you can to make them similar or close to or resemble, but don't stress yourself too much. I spent a lot of time, especially when I just started building, just focusing on trying to get things exactly the same and perfect, and it's sometimes not possible. Like, I'm working on a build right now that I'm pretty sure is going to take me the rest of my life to finish, and I just stopped building it, and I'm just, as a new builder, you learn different ways as you build. And I think even for a seasoned builder, it's probably the same thing. So just take your time. Now, with this one, I changed this in the end because I didn't like how it looked, and I'll show you exactly what I mean in a second. So for some reason, the black wood that I wanted to place on the flooring wasn't going everywhere I wanted it to. So if you notice, like at the bottom of the build, where trims usually go, it just wouldn't fill those gaps, and it bothered me. But I mean, you could leave it like this. Nothing's wrong with having those teeny tiny lines at the bottom, but I wanted it to be as seamless as possible. So I eventually replaced the flooring with a platform with the platform tool. It did erase the walls, but that's perfectly fine because I rebuilt them, and it helped a lot. And something that really helps me with building is filtering out my options. So if you're not sure how to filter out your options, you just press R2 on the PS4 controller, and that'll help you. I do have a video on that as well, so you could check it out. So this is what I meant by having a seamless transition throughout the build. So I had to change it to use the platform tool and just make everything seamless. So then I went in. I normally use the custom room tool because I don't have to keep stopping and going back when I'm building the walls. And I just built one, skip 6, and you just follow along exactly like what I'm doing right now. So this is how I got the cut out to place the windows in the build. And if I didn't mention it before, I am building this in Windenburg in The Sims, but if you don't have Windenburg, because you have to buy a pack to get that one, then you could use Willow Creek. Any place that has a lot of woodsy vibe, I would use for it, because that's what I found in the photo. Just this eerie woodsy vibe, modern Hansel and Gretel type of situation going on with this lake in the background. And I definitely think Willow Creek or Windenburg for me would have worked out perfectly fine, because lucky for me, there was a lake or a river running right behind this house. So ever since base game added ceilings, that's one step I never skip. And because we build 3 stories in the air, the game still thinks that there's a ceiling there, so we can paint the bottom of our house, which I think is pretty cool. Why not? And here is where I decided that I was going to change my mind about the build again. So I noticed that every shade of black that I used in the build was a different shade of black, and it threw off the build for me. In the photo, the cube looked like it was either a dark navy blue, a dark silver, a dark metallic, or a dark shiny black. And in my build, the color, just the floor was different from the trim, different from the windows, different, like everything was a different shade of black. So I decided that I was going to go with my first design, which was the design before this, where I didn't add the platform. And I decided to use shelves to outline the roof to make it a lot more seamless. So the one on the gallery does have the shelves, but again, hey, you could use any design, because again, as a new builder, it's perfectly acceptable to change your mind and just alter your design. Even if you're thinking like, okay, this doesn't work out, then find a way to make it work. It's fine. So here's where I added a bunch of different kind of trees. I used the oak tree, I used the snowy escape tree that's red and green. I used just a bunch of different trees to try to capture that foresty vibe. When the seasons, I do have the seasons pack, so when the seasons change to fall, the green trees, some of them will change over to yellow. So in fall, I'll come back and check out this build and see how it looks. But I think it worked out in the end, the way it appeared on the gallery. It worked out eventually. Again, just be patient with yourself. For me, this build was a little of a challenge because I'm not a regular builder. This month, February 2024, is going to be about a year since I've had the game, but I haven't been playing every single day for years and years. So there are a lot of things that I'm not familiar with. There are a lot of things that I haven't built before, so I wouldn't know what to do to take that concept and put it to this build, if that makes sense. So just be patient with yourself when you're building, and just understand that sometimes it won't turn out the exact way that you want it to, but it's just a matter of time before you learn those ways to make it better. And you can always go back, which would be another video, and just show exactly how you change that build. Or hey, I learned finally how to get a seamless transition with flooring, and this is what I learned. This is what I think I apply to all my videos. It's just not really knowing 100%, but at least maybe somebody went through the same thing that I did and it might help them. So with this one, I just took those snowy escape rocks, and you can use any lamp that's can work outside. Oh man, see, I just saw those logs. Those would have been perfect in the yard. And that's what I'm talking about again. Just, it takes a lot of finessing, I think, to do anything. So you just shrink down a couple of those lights. I added those flowers at the front and it just looked like this fairy tale land, and I loved it. I really loved it. I changed the tree in the end, but in a future video we'll probably try to figure out how to decorate the inside of this build, and you'll see it too. So I hope you enjoyed, guys.